video. Okay, so I'm busy reading Samuel, and it just reminded me about a theme that I've seen in the Bible for a while now. The first time I noticed it was when I read how Peter got to the tomb first, and then he was overtaken by John. I just thought it was weird that they would make a note of that. And then I started to think about it, and I noticed that there's always the second or the last overtaking the first. It's like a theme throughout the Bible. So I just wanted to give you some examples. I've written them down, see? The first one being Peter and John. Okay, this is in no order, it's just as it came to my mind. But you have Peter and John, David and Saul, Samuel and Eli, Jacob and Esau, Abel and Cain, Ephraim and Manasseh, Joshua and Moses, because Joshua went into the promised land, and Moses didn't. Isaac and Ishmael, because Isaac received the promise. So I see a lot of it is they received a promise or they received more. Like Elisha and Elijah. Elisha received the double portion of the anointing. David and Saul, okay, well, David received the promise, I suppose, but he received so much more than Saul did. A true reign, kingship for eternity, actually, which was a great promise to David and his descendants. Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh was firstborn of Joshua. Why can't I think of his name? Joseph. Being the lastborn, but also second lastborn. But he had Ephraim and Manasseh, and then Manasseh was blessed above Ephraim. Ephraim was blessed above Manasseh. Sorry, I'm getting confused now. Joshua and Moses, Isaac and Ishmael. So obviously Isaac received the promise because he was the son of promise, and Ishmael was the son of the flesh, of the slave woman. The last Adam being Jesus, overtaking the first Adam. So then it started to make sense when I thought about that, because I realized it's the old covenant overtaking the new covenant. I read that backwards. The new covenant overtaking the old, being overtaken by the new. The old covenant. Yeah. So like with Cain and Abel, what happened was that Abel had a better sacrifice, like Jesus. He had a better sacrifice than his brother, or the firstborn being Cain. And that also speaks of the old system of sacrifices. So the fact that the old temple sacrifices were animals. They were animals' blood, and they were not pleasing before God, especially because they were done in such a way, or there were times when they were done with contempt. The people didn't do them to honor God. They just gave him, their lesser animal to be sacrificed, their sick animal, their blind animal. And it was abhorrent before God. And even before the New Testament, he cut it off, saying that when you sacrifice an ox, it says, oh, you sacrifice a man, I think. Or when you sacrifice a lamb, it's like you sacrifice a dog. That's probably not correct, but it is. I'm just paraphrasing badly. So the old system, the old covenant with the old sacrifices was taken over by the new, by the second. And also the second coming of Christ will overtake the old, because there's also an eternal covenant coming. Okay, so the last Adam and the first Adam, and Cain and Abel. It's just very interesting because, like with Cain and Abel, when Jesus came and he had a better sacrifice, it says that the blood of Christ speaks better word, but he had a better sacrifice than the old system. So the Pharisees and the old temple system hated him for it and ultimately murdered him, killed him over it, just like how Cain killed Abel, because he was jealous of the sacrifice that he gave to God and that he was acceptable to God. And also by then they'd become unacceptable. What they were doing, it was no longer received by God. Well, I wouldn't say it was no longer received by God. I don't know. There must have been an overlap there where the exchange took place between the old and the new. Okay, but also Jesus and John the Baptist, because John was born first, and then he said that another comes after me who is before me. That's actually another thing that got me thinking about it, because John said, the one who comes after me came before me, because Jesus was before John the Baptist, as he was before all creation. And also that he overtook John the Baptist's ministry, so John prepared the way, and then Christ came and fulfilled and overtook his ministry from the moment he was baptized. And John said that he must decrease and Jesus must increase. So there is and it came to a point where I wonder, because, I think maybe it comes to a point like when Jacob gave received the birthright, when he tricked Esau and received his birthright, and then later his blessing. There's like an exchange. At some point, the exchange takes place. Like Cain offered his sacrifice, and then Abel offered his, and Abel's was pleasing. There was an exchange that took place. So at some point, it happens. And I think with Jesus and John the Baptist, it was at the point of John the Baptist baptizing Jesus. But also when Jesus overtook the old temple, I'm trying to think, how did that work? Because he went to the temple, there were still sacrifices. While he was alive, they took sacrifices, didn't they? It doesn't say. I've never seen anywhere where Jesus took a sacrifice to the temple, but I'm sure that they would have as a family and things. So I think, maybe I'm wrong, but when Jesus cursed the fig tree, that was later on in one of the books, after speaking about cursing the fig tree, it goes on to where he was on his way into Jerusalem, I think, at the time, and then, okay, I will have to check this. I'm sorry, but I think in Luke is the one place where after he curses the fig tree, he goes on to curse the Sanhedrin, or the high priests. I think that's where he calls them all those names, and he calls them a brood of vipers, and he really curses them that they will never bear fruit again, and that fruit being, souls for God, that fruit being good works, and then it withers. which is when I think he ended that old system. He put an end to it. Hey, I'm almost done. Okay, so let me just finish there. I also saw, obviously, Elijah and Elijah. Elijah was overtaken by Elisha. Paul and Saul, that those were both obviously Paul, but Paul overtook the old Saul. And also, I wonder if he overtook Judas Iscariot as the disciple, even though I know that Matthias overtook Judas. And also Paul and Stephen. So when Stephen laid down, when Stephen died, Paul laid down Paul stood watch over the garments that were being laid down by everyone who was stoning Stephen. And it was as though Paul, when he became Paul, would later overtake Stephen's ministry. Then also Mordecai and Haman, and the first temple and the second temple. Okay, I also saw that there are women in the Bible where the first is overtaken by the second. So Mary and Elizabeth, because Elizabeth gave birth first and Mary gave birth second, but obviously she gave birth to Jesus, who would overtake John the Baptist. Hannah and Peninnah. Hannah was barren and Peninnah was blessed with children, but then Hannah became more blessed after giving birth to Samuel. Rachel and Leah. Leah was the first bride, and she was overtaken by Rachel of Jacob, or Israel. He was tricked into marrying Leah, and then hang on. I think I'm a little confused. Okay, anyway, Queen Esther and Queen Vashti. Queen Esther overtook the reign of Queen Vashti. Sarah and Hagar. Sarah overtook Hagar in that she received Isaac, and Hagar having first given birth to Ishmael. And then also Ruth and Naomi, I think, because Ruth continued Naomi's line, so she gave birth to Obed. Okay, those are as many as I could think of, but there are many examples in the Bible, and even not only in the people, but also like in the temple and the second temple, the first temple and the second temple, and the old covenant and the new covenant, and just all these things that swap places. The new being overtaken, the old being overtaken by the new. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks so much for joining me, and yeah, I'll do another live again soon. Hopefully, I just have to warm up to the idea, but it does make my life a little easier. All right, hope you have a great day. God bless. How do you stop it?